So, to get us started and sort of help frame today's discussion, we figured it was important for us to first acknowledge where we've been as an industry, and obviously that being the AP industry, in order for us to better understand where we're headed. So, the accounts payable technology industry is arguably one of the most mature B2B technology segments. When you look back, EDI was first implemented in the 1960s, which is sort of crazy to think. And there's been tremendous investment in this space for the last 4 decades. We've built some great technology, interesting features over the years. And more specifically, here at Direct Commerce, we've been a leader in the AP industry space since the early 2000s. And for the sake of today's discussion, I thought it was worth pointing out sort of what's going on here. And nearly 2 years ago, we were presented with a very unique opportunity, and that was to completely replatform our business, build an entirely new solution from the ground up. And interestingly enough, and sort of luckily enough for us, we were able to do this in the real era of AI. So in doing so, we spent quite a bit of time with consultants, advisors, customers, discussing where did we miss and what did we miss as an industry over the last 4 decades. And the common theme that we heard was that we overlooked the supplier, and specifically the supplier's role and user experience in the AP process. And when you think about it, AP technology historically has always been built with a focus on the buyer and the AP team's day-to-day process, focused on automating current processes. But we failed to really realize as an industry that the AP process actually begins with the supplier. So why is that important for today's discussion? So today, when you start to really think about the role of AI, it's important to really think through reasonable and real application of AI. So in order to bring the supplier into the fold and into the user experience of a modern AP application, we need to leverage AI in order to do that. And also AI and meaningful AI use cases requires great data. So as we think through that, and you think about an AI native architecture, as I mentioned, it really requires a broad set of data. The depth of the functionality of the solution matters. So for a native AI architecture, it's important to provide real application, real functionality. These items that you see here is sort of a sample of and an example of an end-to-end AP automation solution that we've built. And then for today's discussion, we won't go into the details of each of these features and historically viewed as modules. Each one of these features have real application and importance, but each feature brings to the application unique data. So when you start to really think through the role of an AI native platform, we've got to think about the data that we're able to have access to, and the depth of the functionality is important. So when you think about e-invoicing, supplier self-service portals, the interactions and the activity that we see suppliers taking on the portal, intelligent workflows, all the way through electronic dispute management, what you start to realize is that when you have this type of functionality, you have a broad view of the end-to-end transaction and all of the data from each stage of the application. So we recently conducted a survey with just over, I think it was roughly over 500 respondents across AP and really the broader finance function. And here are a few of the, I would say, the interesting findings that we found that were relevant for today's discussion. So everybody obviously is talking about AI. The question is, what should AI be doing for AP, right? So 76% say that they're using or unsure what AI should actually be delivering in AP. 1 in 3, as you see, are having a tough time explaining the difference between an AI-powered solution and an AI-native solution. I thought this one was interesting, but not surprising. 91% say that their organization is already using AI and accounts payable. And I thought this was an interesting response given that 76% say they're unsure. I think what we're all experiencing, whether it's in our day-to-day life or in our business life, is that AI tools have never been more accessible, and we're all interested in using them. But the use case and the role of AI is where we're still struggling. So, software and especially orchestration platforms have an incredibly important role to play moving forward. And I think these survey results sort of illustrate that is that we have a major role in delivering AI with a purpose. So three ways that we are delivering AI in our what we're calling our AP intelligence application. So three independent sort of areas of the product. So we're enhancing a lot of the current traditional legacy functionality with AI. So everything from more smarter ways of coding, matching and routing workflows and approvals. Um, Typical things that you're seeing in the market. AI has a major role to enhance your traditional processes. Uh, Big area of focus is category two for us, and we'll show you some more today, is the AI intelligence piece. So, how do we not just automate processes for the sake of automating, but how do we create more intelligent processes? How do we leverage the data from the end to end transaction, from everything that we see from how the invoice was submitted to how it was approved to how it was paid? And ultimately, if a dispute was raised, how was that dispute resolved? When you look at that broad set of functionality, again, taking you back to an earlier slide, the depth of that data provides us with the ability to really surface up intelligent insights and optimization tips, which we'll show. And then the AI native piece of this, right? So the ability to re-platform and build an application in today's day and age with an AI first architecture is very important. So some examples of what that allows us to do. You'll see built-in agentic AI capabilities, but also through our native MCPs, we really have the ability to allow our clients to bring their own agents, connect their own AI features to the application. So the architecture is incredibly important. Conversational workflow builder, which Daniel will show us today, is very unique, right? So the ability to build workflows incredibly easily through conversations, and the ability to manage and monitor those workflows real time and configure those is a bit different when the architecture is truly AI native. And lastly, for me, when you think of the AI, the role of AI, it's not just, it really stretches far beyond automation and delivering intelligence. When AI is delivered with a purpose, it has the ability to truly change behaviors and ultimately evolve processes. And hopefully you'll see that today with a quick demo. So from some examples, right? So we all want the suppliers to be more involved and do more things. So in order to do that, we need to provide them with real insights that they can act on, and intelligence. For AP teams, you need to be able to provide them with optimization tips, right? The way to interact with the product conversationally as well. And when we do this, you'll see we have a real view on how suppliers will become much more active participants. And a lot of this is as a result of purpose-built AI and AI layered in a way that really changes behaviors. And Daniel, I'll let you touch on some of the AI native architecture and just the one specific use case from building out workflows.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many cool things, and as Jesse said, we have the chance to totally rebuild an application from the ground up with all these native things. Starting with some very basic things of think about like event-driven architecture, which means if you've ever been in an application and you've sent an invoice or some kind of task on, you sit there and hit the refresh button waiting for it to pop back up. That's because it's not event-driven, meaning that items you have to essentially refresh the page. Whereas now I can build a system that, hey, once I click send, it pops back and auto fills itself on the page. Those are very kind of basic or architecture things that you can put inside an application today, all the way to the fact about when I build something like a workflow um, today compared to my past. And I think at the beginning there was tells you I've been around too long, a long list of things I've like in my past. I've managed quite a few AP teams, and one of the huge challenges you have when you manage an AP product is you have to understand how to build a workflow. If you're new to that role, then you've got to go back and learn a whole new application. And usually you're reading a bunch of like I was about to say, a bunch of how-to manuals. You're calling people. Instead, now I can have a conversation and actually have the system help me build the workflow without having to spend days or weeks trying to understand how the whole system works, right? So now I have controls, and I'll come in and show this in a second. But having that from the ground up, that's what enables me to do this. So today, like being able to build a system today has a lot of benefits.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Jesse and Daniel, for an excellent session. I'd like to dedicate the last 5 minutes or so to the audience Q&A. To jump straight in, the first question we received was from Jeanette, who asked, each time we get a new technology, we seem to return to the back office to somehow still redo the same linear and sequential AP and accounting processes. For you guys, what is the most effective application to actually change the fundamental process to leverage the power of AI and LLMs, etc., like effectively? Feel free to jump in.
So it's funny, Jesse and I were actually just talking about this the other day, as we were talking to some others. AI is everywhere, and it's, I think it was even in one of the slides there. Yeah, it's tough to take it. You can do a lot with it, but this is all we focus on. And so what I mean by that is it's probably a full-time job just to keep up with the Claude releases on what AI changed this week, right? And so how do we take the information we see across all of our customers? And we've got some of the biggest businesses in the world using direct commerce, and utilize that and see what they're doing to change their process. And it ultimately boils down to, we can drive insights into what's a repetitive process. And for instance, we just figured, and we're doing this with a 99% accuracy, there's a dispute process happening where somebody is rejecting it, the supplier, our customer is rejecting it 99% of the time. And our system can come in and look at it and say, hey, here's the agent that responds to these the same way you do with 99% accuracy. So how do I answer that with what's the most effective tool? Is it's really hard to come in and look at it in the middle of your job, right? You're trying to get invoices paid. You're trying to run a monthly your weekly payment. Maybe you've got a check run. You've got somebody on hold over here. To step back and look at the system, and then maybe you can apply a rule here and there. But having a system that's actually sitting out there looking to write those rules for you is really what the difference is between using like a Claude Code instance and actually deploying a system with AI built in to build those rules for you.
Yeah, and I would just add, so I think it's a great question, and it sort of illustrates how we look at this ourselves, which is, we're not looking to automate historical processes and status quo processes. The idea is to leverage data and leverage AI to really better understand where the slowdowns in the process are, where are errors consistently made, and begin to change those processes, start to develop and institute more intelligent processes. So yeah, it's a great question, and really that is our focus, is to have a very broad view of the data, and start to understand where those optimization opportunities exist and modify processes as a result of that.
Great, thank you very much. And the next question we have is from Sarinvas, who would like to know, so with strict implementation of no PO, no pay policy is one of the hallmarks of a healthy and robust source to pay function. However, there are multiple constraints and challenges from both user side and supplier side that limit the effective enforcement of that policy. For you guys, how can AI add value in the way of analysing and predicting user behaviour for improved compliance?
That's another good question. And I agree. A strict no PO, no pay policy puts the supplier straight out of the way, right? It's like, hey, no PO, and it just rejects. It may not even make it in the system if it's EDI. Now that supplier is trying to figure out how to get a PO, and it creates it creates a lot of work. I've been there, right? So that's why our interaction is not one, it's configurable because you may choose like, hey, that's how it works. But you also still see that invoice bounce back to the supplier. That supplier has the option to resolve it right there. And there's open communication. So it's not lost. It doesn't go into somebody's email box and then they send off an email to somebody else and then it gets lost. No, it's still there. So as my AR side can pull it up, they can see the history. Could be even a different AR person the next week who's opened up that interaction. They've got the full history. They know what's needed, and then they can respond to it. But on the buyer side, especially if you're seeing specific suppliers where you're struggling with, you can choose to review those things earlier on before you automatically reject. And it's a simple click in my in the capture where I read the invoices settings by supplier. If I choose to say, well, these items I want to review before I automatically reject, or these items are like pretty basic. You know, you didn't put an invoice on or number on your invoice. I'm just going to send that straight back to you. So you have the choice on how you want to manage your team and your relationship with your suppliers. And even if you've written the most strict of policies, I think this interaction well exceeds just the ability, somebody who can't even put an invoice into your system if there's no PO. Big difference there.